Good day, all, and welcome to another edition of Local Legislator Live at 11. I am your host, Charles Gates, and with us this morning, we've got from Virginia Beach, Beverly Anderson. She is running for re-election on the Virginia Beach School Board. This is called a Raw interview, and we are a component of locallegislator.net, where our mission is to be the premier source of local election information in the United States and an advocate for the sustainability of local businesses nationwide. Good morning, Miss Anderson. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Glad to be with you.
Good, good, good. Let's jump right into this interview. And again, to our viewers out there, this is called a raw interview. We run it. If we blub it up, if we flub it up, we're going to keep on rocking and rolling. Well, Miss Anderson, tell us about you. What is your education and occupation, and why are you running for re-election for Virginia Beach School Board?
Okay. Well, I'm Beverly Anderson, as you know, and I grew up in West Virginia, where I went to Concord University, and I earned a BS in early childhood and elementary education. I moved to Virginia Beach in 1973, and I began teaching at Kings Grant Elementary at that time. I met my husband, who was in the Navy, and we married in 1977. He was a career naval officer. And we moved to Pensacola for 3 years, but then we moved back to Virginia Beach, and we were lucky to remain in Virginia Beach for the rest of his 23 years in the service. So when he was stationed on the Nimitz, I was voted as president of the Officers' Wives Club, and I resumed my teaching career in Virginia Beach and taught a total of 36 years in Virginia in the school system. During my years as a Navy wife, a mother, and teacher, I was very active, not only in my children's school PTA, but also in my own PTA of schools where I taught. And I was vice president of PTA at Pembroke Elementary. I was given a lifetime PTA award from both Pembroke Elementary and Allenton, and I taught at Allenton for 27 years of those years. I've always been a volunteer. My husband said I don't know how to say no. I volunteered as part of the Atlantic Soccer Club board. I was part of the Sand Soccer Tournament board in Virginia Beach, and I was always involved in the Virginia Beach Education Association as my professional association. In fact, I was on their board for several years, and I was also secretary of the association for several years. So, but in recent years, since I've retired, I became involved with the noblemen and noblewomen of Virginia Beach to help raise funds for children who were in need in Virginia Beach. So as you can see, I've been involved in numerous ways throughout the community and also through my professional career.
Okay.
I'm running for re-election to the Virginia Beach School Board because I want to continue to be a positive advocate for teachers, students, and parents in Virginia Beach. And after teaching 36 years, I first ran for the board in 2012 because I thought I could bring the perspective of a classroom teacher to the board. And so even though I've been out of the classroom for the past 8 years, I'm still very passionate about our school system and our school division. And I still have, I tell people, once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. I still have that professional attitude of being a teacher. I still understand the view of a classroom teacher. And just recently, I actually observed a couple teachers who were teaching virtually, and boy, do I ever have respect for what they're doing now. But so since joining the board, I've gained experience and in-depth knowledge. My colleagues voted entrusted leadership roles in me and voted for me to be vice chair of the board for 2 years, and then I was chair of the Virginia Beach School Board for 3 years. So I have 3 to 4 goals. But before I start working on my goals, the most important thing is for me right now is to get all of our students getting back to normal, and getting back to school and being normal. I don't know if we'll ever be normal again, but I know we're going to try to get our students back in school. I know that the pandemic has created an economic downfall, but as soon as the economy starts to recover, one of my first priority is to increase salaries for our teachers because.
All right, but Ms. Anderson,
Oh yes.
I'm going to ask you about your goals.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Don't get too far ahead of me.
Sorry about that.
You are definitely on a roll, but I'm going to ask you that in a moment. But for now, what?
I was just going on.
You are like the Energizer Bunny. You were just going and going. Now, what is your full name on the upcoming ballot for our viewers?
It's Beverly M. Anderson.
Okay. Now we understand.
I'm listed first on the at-large category. So my
Okay.
name is first on that list.
All righty. Thank you for clarifying. And we understand that school board candidates are not required to disclose any political party affiliations. Do you associate with any parties?
I associate mostly with the Teachers Association. That's my number one thing because I not only was I a member of the Teachers Association when I was a full-time teacher, but I'm a lifetime member. After I retired, I joined the lifetime member. So yes, I with that part of it, but I've associated strongly with the Democrats because in my career, what I found was that the Democratic candidates were more favorable toward funding education, and you know that's where it is. That's where I'm at. I'm worried. I always worry about, are we going to have enough funding to pay our teachers? Are we going to have enough funding to build our schools? And in my years of teaching, I discovered that the people who funded teachers more than anybody, or public education more than anyone, was the Democratic Party. So I've associated with them some. My family is all Republican. And so, I realize that Republicans care about public education too, but in my experience, the Democrats have been the ones who have funded education the most. So.
Okay. Now, you've already told us how long you've been living in Virginia Beach, since the 70s. That is quite commendable on your part. Have you held any public offices prior to being on the school board?
Not public officers. As I said, I was president of the Nimitz Officers Association. And so mostly things like that, but not public, no.
Okay. Now, to our viewers out there, if you like this interview and you'd like to see more, please sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, and connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And be sure to leave us a comment to let us know who you would like to hear from next. And we'll do our best to get that person, that candidate, that organization representative on the air as quickly as possible. Now, Ms. Anderson, you mentioned the fact that your husband thinks you have a problem saying no, and you've been involved with a lot of community organizations. Now, how has all of that community involvement helped you to prepare for this moment?
Well, I think it has given me the knowledge of, being able to work and help people who need help, being able to be a leader. Not only did I become the manager of my son's soccer teams, both of my boys' soccer teams, but I also trained other managers for the Atlantic Soccer Club. So I was a leader in there. And so I tend to become a leader. And so I would say that, I was voted as vice president of the Pembroke PTA because they needed somebody to take control of their fundraising for that area. So I don't know, I just have a gift of gab, I guess you'd say, and gift for stepping in and helping where there is need. And so our school system, I felt, really needed somebody to bring the perspective of a classroom teacher. And I still do that. I still am a strong advocate for teachers and staff and students because it's in my blood. I just feel like, that's what I did, and that's what I'm all about. So that's how I became involved with wanting to run for the school board, because I felt the real need to bring the classroom teacher's perspective to the board.
Okay, and I can definitely relate to you about having an issue saying no and being put in charge of everything you're involved in. At some point, they just ask you and you say, "Oh, okay, no problem," because there's a need. Now we are at the section in the interview where I'm going to ask you, what are your 4 main goals if reelected?
Okay. before I even get to that, I want to say that my main goal right now, they've sort of changed a little bit since I first started this campaign, because obviously the pandemic has happened. We have our students have been learning virtually. And so my main goal right now, actually I have 5 now instead of 4, because the first goal is to get our students back to normal. So I kind of mentioned that a minute ago. But after we do that, and after the economy begins to recover, after we're through this thing, when our economy begins to recover, we need to recruit and retain quality teachers. We realized even before this happened that teachers across the nation were in short supply. Students are not going into teaching. And why? Why is that? It has to do with the fact that they go to school for 4 or 5 years, and then they come out and they have these major debts, and then they're going to go into a profession where it's not going to really, they can't even afford to buy a house in their own neighborhood. So the salaries of teachers is my number one priority after the economy starts to recover a little bit. We've got to bring our salaries up. In Virginia Beach, we're one of the wealthiest cities, believe it or not. We are one of the wealthiest cities in the Commonwealth, and yet our teachers don't even make the national average as far as their main salaries go. So we've got to bring our teacher salaries up to at least the national average. And we've been in a bubble in Virginia Beach. We've been in a bubble here. We've never had to worry about getting teachers until now. And because of the pandemic, all of a sudden we have teachers who are afraid to go back to the classroom. Some of the older teachers who like 25 years or more, they're just saying it's not worth it. I'm out of here. I'm retiring. So we just recently lost 70 teachers in 1 month. From August 15th to September 15th, we lost 70 teachers. So and I can't blame them. You have to think of your health. You have to think of that. And if you've had 20 to 30 years of experience, and you realize that you've got to go back in the classroom, and you stand a chance of getting this virus, those teachers are saying, okay, it's not worth my health, not worth me bringing it home and giving it to my family. So we've had a lot of retirees in the last month. A lot of people, and then some of those people who left weren't even retirees, they just resigned. So all of a sudden, Virginia Beach, who's been in a bubble, who didn't have to worry about teachers, all of a sudden we don't have that luxury right now. We're having to beg for people to come out and to put their applications in to become a teacher. So one of the things that we're going to have to do is to try to recruit and retain quality teachers. We need to recruit them from colleges. We need to recruit these students and say, look, we're going to give you a salary that's commensurate with the economy out there. Don't go into a business, come and teach, but we have to pay them, because the young students of today are not willing to do this profession and work as hard as they need to work and not be compensated for what they think they're worth. So we've got to bring their salaries up. That's my number one goal. Lowering class sizes. We know that we have a lot of students who are really, they've missed out on face-to-face instruction. We know that we're going to have to meet the needs of these students. And so we're going to have to lower class sizes, and all that takes money. So yes, I'm going to have to work hard on lobbying the General Assembly. We need to lobby Congress. We need to recover from all this. And I realize that the economy itself is in problem. We have problems with the economy, but soon as we are able to start to recover, education has got to be the number one thing that we start putting money back into. It was the first thing that was cut last spring. Our city council, we had to cut our budget for this fiscal year. Now we had to cut it by $24 million. That is a huge chunk. And so our teachers last spring, we had earmarked to give them a 3.5% raise. That was completely taken away. Even their experience step was taken away, which is just a 0.5. So that's my third goal. I want to guarantee at least to guarantee an experience step. I think when times are bad, you ought to at least be able to give somebody an experience step and have them move up on the ladder another year. And then my fourth goal Again, it has to do with money, but this one has to do with saving money. Chesapeake created pharmaceutical satellites for their school employees, and they have been saving their school employees a lot of money by having these pharmaceutical satellites for just their employees. Well, in Virginia Beach, we are combined, our health insurance is combined with the city employees. So it's not just the school employees. So I want to create citywide pharmaceutical satellites for our city and our school employees to be able to save them money, because I've talked to teachers in Chesapeake and they're saving a lot of money, and our health premiums have gone up. If we could save them money for pharmaceutical supplies and pharmaceutical needs, we would be able to at least save them some money when they have prescriptions that they need to get filled. So, right, I lobbied on that for City Council, and actually, City Council just appointed 2 of their members, and I was chair at the time, and they asked me to appoint 2 of our school board members. And so we do have a committee now that is studying that possibility in Virginia Beach. So they've had 2 meetings, or 1 meeting so far. They're getting ready to go on a field trip and go over and look at some of the satellites in Chesapeake. And so that may come to fruition. I hope so, because I think it would save our employees some money. So those are my 4 goals. Improving compensation for teachers and staff, lowering class sizes for teachers so they can meet the needs of students, protecting and guarantee the experience step, and creating citywide pharmaceutical satellites for our city and school employees.
Okay, very, very well done. Now let me ask you this question before we ask you how to get in touch with you and your campaign. There was a few things that you touched on that I just want to clarify. I want to ask you about. For those that don't know, the satellite pharmaceutical model, how does that work? Just briefly, as much as you know.
Okay, what I know from what I've heard from the employees of the Chesapeake school system, and they were able to do it for their employees because they're not combined with their city over there like we are in Virginia Beach. Our school system health coverage is combined over here. So that's why it's a little more difficult. We have 15,000 employees in our Virginia Beach City Public School System, and the city has about 6,000. So that's a large group of people. And so the feasibility of creating these pharmaceutical satellites is going to cost a little bit of money up front for the city to implement. But I think it would be worth it because, as you know, health insurance, the premiums have gone up. The insurance premiums themselves, and when you go to the doctor, your co-pays have gone up. So this would be a way to help, like I said, both city employees and school board employees. And so what it is now they would have only certain prescriptions, and you would not be prohibited from using pharmacies on the outside as well. But if you needed, let's just say things like ibuprofen and aspirin and things like that, things that are kind of like over-the-counter things are things that could be utilized there. And so my friend who teaches in Chesapeake, she's able to go, like, for example, to buy ibuprofen. She can get a bottle of ibuprofen for $2. It's a cost-saving method.
Okay. It's almost like it's almost like a version of Good RX or something along those lines.
Similar to that, yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
So they are in the process. The 2 people who I appointed on the school board to do that are Trenace Riggs and Kim Melnick. And so the 2 of them are on a committee with 2 council members, and they are going to go on a field trip over and look at some of the satellite facilities. They started out in Chesapeake with just 1. And now I think they're up to 4 satellites throughout their city. And so we would have to come up with, the upfront costs. Our city would have to come up with that. But I do believe in the long run, it would really help our employees have a way to save some money on some pharmaceutical costs. And some of the drugs that, like prescription drugs, they might not have because they're not going to go into some of the. So you would still be able to use your insurance to go on the outside, but it would be a way for our employees really save some money. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition. We'll see.
Okay, great. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm talking to Miss Riggs tomorrow. She's going to
Okay,
be, we're going to be communicating tomorrow. And my second question, I had no idea. 70 teachers, that's a huge number in a
it
30-day
is.
span.
We're also
Now,
short 70 bus drivers
oh my goodness. Now,
and
my
50
question,
teacher assistants. So,
oh my goodness, keeps on getting worse and worse. It got to be
right.
a good, it got to be a good side to this somewhere. So this is my question: what can we do as a community to help offset those numbers? I mean, those are huge numbers you just threw at me in terms of recruiting bus drivers and teachers and staff. Is there anything that we as a community can do to help in those efforts?
Well, first of all, being aware of it, I think is helpful. For people to say, well, we've had an awful lot of parents who've contacted us and saying, why can't you get everybody back in school right now?
Mm,
Well, we're trying as hard as we can, but we can't just bring them back like it's normal because it's not normal. We have to have distancing in our classrooms right now. And so that part of it is going on. This past Tuesday, we started out with 9,000 of our students, pre-K to second grade, started back on Tuesday. So we've been in school, what, 4 days now? This is the fourth day. But for those, pre-K to second grade. And then this coming Tuesday, we're going to bring back third, fourth, and fifth grade. Okay. So, I mean, we're working on it, but the public has been so worried and so critical of us not bringing students back, but yet, we were trying to do it in a safe but cautionary way. And so, like I said, I understand these teachers who felt like they needed to put their health first and they couldn't come back, but I think the public needs to be aware of this. And we've been putting the word out. Our human resources department they're doing everything they can now to get the word out that we need people to apply to become teachers, to become bus drivers, to become teacher assistants. And so getting the word out to the community is a big deal right now. We have to do that because I do believe there are people out there who would be willing to step up. But we also it's going to take a toll on experience as well.
right.
So
Right.
uh,
Now, let me ask you this, and I know these were not the pre-scripted questions that I had sent you,
that's
but
okay.
this is a very interesting conversation here. Now, in terms of recruitments, is Virginia Beach offering incentives to some of these college seniors to come to the city? Now I know that the salary is an issue, but are there other incentives that makes it appetizing to come to Virginia Beach? Because if you're losing that many bus drivers and teachers and staff and everyone else, I would imagine you're not alone in Hampton Roads, and that's probably multiplied across the nation. That is
Well,
scary. So what? So the question again is Virginia Beach offering some type of incentives to these college students everywhere to come to Virginia Beach and perhaps embrace in a teaching profession?
so as I said before, all this pandemic happened, we were visiting colleges. Our human resources departments were going there, and they were giving incentive bonuses to people who signed early. So,
Okay.
in other words, if you they would go visit them, say in February and March, and if they signed right away, they would give them incentive bonuses. We
Oh,
talked about that, and so we feel like that's something that we could do now, also to get some people who are interested in teaching. And let me explain this. We had our human resources department told us they had 100 applicants for teaching jobs. So that sounds great, right? 100 applicants. Of those 100 applicants, you can't just hire anybody who's not qualified. They have to be qualified. They have to have the credentials. So of the 100 applicants, about 55 or 60 of them were actually qualified. So you had to throw 40 of them out right away. And then you start the interview process and find out that maybe some of them might have other reasons why they might not be quite fine. So of the 100, they ended up hiring about 35.
wow. Wow.
So they're working on it. But I do believe there are people out there who have the teaching credentials who would be willing to come forward. But I think this problem right now with the pandemic has people frightened. And they're saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure I really want to do that and put my life at risk. So we just have to get things under control with this pandemic so that we can then start. I do believe it'll come back. I believe we're going to be able to come back. But right now we're in a crisis. And what's sad about this is that I knew a year ago that there's a teacher shortage nationwide. We know, we've been tracking, and we know that college kids are just not going into teaching. That it's been down for a couple of years now. But we were kind of, like I said, in a bubble in Virginia Beach. We had plenty of people who were applying to become teachers here. You know, the old saying of "I teach at the beach and I'm so proud to be here." You know, by the way, I invented that saying. I teach at the beach. It's a long story, but I'll go into that with you some other time as to how I came up with that phrase back in 1977. So, but anyway, you know, I mean, really, it is true. I mean, people are like, well, I'll go to the beach. I'll teach at the beach. You know, we've been in a bubble. We haven't had to worry. And all of a sudden, it just hit. Because when you ask teachers back in February, are you planning to return next fall? And they say yes. But then all of a sudden, March 13th hit. And then we closed down schools and all this happened. So all of a sudden, those teachers who said, well, yeah, I'm coming back next year. I can do it another year. When it came to putting their health in front of them, they changed their minds. And I can't hold that against them. You know, I feel like you have to do what's best for you. And if you feel like your health is at risk and you cannot do it, then you have to do what's best for yourself. But at the same time, that doesn't help our students. And so, you know, if I could go back into it, I think I would right now too, but I'm not allowed to teach because I'm on the board.
That's a tough situation to be in. Now, my last question for you, Ms. Anderson, is how can we find out more about you and your campaign?
Okay, I have a website, and it is Bev, B-E-V, and then the number 4, and then school board. So Bev, the number 4, schoolboard.com. So that's my website. And I'm also on Facebook, and that is a little different. It's just Bev and then the word F-O-R, Bev for School Board on Facebook. But my website has a lot of links on it as well. So Bev, the number 4, schoolboard.com.
Okay, well, we thank you so much for being here and making us aware, because I had no idea. I had no idea those numbers were so high. That is scary. It's what it is.
It's not just Virginia Beach. It happened in Norfolk, Portsmouth. We're all hurting right now.
And I would imagine that's across the nation. I mean, we're all in this pandemic. It's very scary indeed. To our viewers out there, we hope you were able to gain some insight into the state of Virginia Beach schools, and I would imagine, and encourage you to look into what's happening in your own community if you're not part of the Virginia Beach community. But get in touch with your school board members and find out, get those details, go to their website and become educated. And that is the main goal. And that is why we do this, is to raise awareness to the community of what's happening in your neighborhood. Again, I'm Charles Gates. This is the Local Legislator Live at 11 show. And our guest this morning has been school board member at large, hoping to get reelected, Beverly Anderson from Virginia Beach. Thank you so much, Ms. Anderson, for being here today. We really appreciate it. And to our viewers, you're welcome. And to our viewers out there, remember, we are Local Legislator Live at 11, and we're not global, we're local. Take care of yourself until next time.